Listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about warfare, survival, and the creatures that call themselves humans. My name is Vec Torin, Senior Combat Instructor at the Galactic Military Academy on Crescent Prime. 47 cycles of service. 216 confirmed kills. I have trained over 9,000 cadets from 73 different species. I have seen warriors born, made, and broken. I have watched empires rise and fall from the wrong end of a plasma rifle. And I am telling you now, with absolute certainty, that I have never in all my considerable years been as terrified as I was the day I met Cadet Felix Okonkwo. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. The transport shuttle touched down on the Academy landing platform at exactly 0600 hours. Standard orientation day. Nothing special, just another batch of fresh meat for the grinder. I stood at the edge of the platform with my fellow instructors. Commander Brasilis, a Vorith female with 6 arms and a temper that could melt starship hull plating. Lieutenant Braxis, a Kelmorian whose crystalline exoskeleton made him nearly impossible to injure. And 3 of the most decorated combat veterans in the sector, assembled to evaluate the newest recruits. The shuttle doors opened. Out came the usual assortment. Nervous Threlian quadrupeds. Overconfident Nexari with their bioluminescent scales. A pair of Grothian twins who probably thought their 4-meter height would intimidate everyone. And then came the human. He was small, impossibly small, 1.8 meters, maybe 1.9. No natural armor, no claws, no fangs, no venom sacs, acid glands or electromagnetic sensory organs. Just soft, vulnerable flesh wrapped around a fragile skeleton. He was also, I noticed immediately, smiling. Now I have seen many expressions on the faces of incoming cadets over the years: fear, determination, excitement, constipation. Once, although that turned out to be a medical emergency, but this human was smiling the way a predator smiles when it spots prey. Relaxed, confident, almost amused. I did not like that smile. Not one bit. "Attention, cadets!" Commander Wazard barked, all 6 of her arms clasped behind her back. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy. Over the next 18 months, you will be pushed beyond your limits. You will be tested. You will suffer. Many of you will wash out. Some of you will be injured. A few of you, statistically speaking, will die." The Threlians whimpered. The Grothian twins exchanged nervous glances. The Nexari stopped glowing quite so brightly. The human kept smiling. Shelley's continued. "You will learn to fight, you will learn to kill, and most importantly, you will learn when to retreat. Because there are things in this galaxy, cadets, that cannot be defeated, cannot be killed, cannot be and knowing when to run from those things is the difference between a decorated veteran and a corpse." She turned to me. "Instructor Torin, you have the next module." I stepped forward, activating my holopad. "Thank you, Commander. Cadets, your first lesson: threat classification and recognition." I projected an image into the air above my holopad, a massive creature, all teeth and armor and rage. "The Kethrix behemoth," I announced. "Indigenous to the death worlds of the Outer Rim. 8 tons of muscle and natural weaponry. Can survive in vacuum for up to 30 minutes. Its hide is impervious to standard plasma fire." I looked around the assembled cadets. "How would you kill it?" Silence. One of the Grothian twins raised a massive hand. "Heavy artillery." Negative. Its regenerative capabilities allow it to heal faster than heavy artillery can damage it. The Nexari recruit flickered uncertainly. "Poison." Its metabolism burns through any known toxin within seconds. More silence. Then the human spoke. His voice was calm, almost lazy. "What about its eyes?" I turned to face him. "I beg your pardon?" "Its eyes," the human repeated, gesturing at the hologram. "Big creature like that. Lots of armor, but those eyes are exposed. They have to be, otherwise it could not see. I am guessing the orbital structure around them is thinner than the rest of the skull to accommodate the ocular muscles. Put a penetrator round through the eye socket at the right angle, and you would be in the brain." The other cadets stared at him. I stared at him. Even Commander HFY stared at him, which was saying something because she was not easily impressed. That is, I said slowly, theoretically correct. The human shrugged. Most things die if you put a hole in their brain. Just a matter of finding the right angle. The next 3 weeks were, to put it mildly, educational. Not for the human. For me. He passed every physical assessment. Not by the largest margin. The Grothians were stronger. The Nexari were faster. The Threllians had better endurance. But where the human excelled, truly excelled, was in what he called problem-solving. We put him in the combat maze. A shifting labyrinth filled with automated turrets, pit traps and holographic enemies. The Academy record for completion was held by a Kelmorian Special Forces veteran. 4 minutes. 17 seconds. Cadet Okonkwo completed it in 3 minutes. 42 seconds. He did not do this by being the fastest or the strongest. He did it by being absolutely, terrifyingly unpredictable. He used the environmental hazards against the turrets. He lured holographic enemies into each other's lines of fire. At one point he deliberately triggered a pit trap so he could use the falling debris as cover while he flanked an enemy position. When he emerged from the maze, he was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. He was also, once again, smiling. Not bad, he said. That was fun. Week 7 brought the Wilderness Survival module. Standard procedure: drop cadets in hostile territory, make them find their way back to base camp without supplies. Most cadets struggled. The Threllians nearly died from hypothermia. One of the Nexari had a panic attack when his bioluminescence attracted nocturnal predators. A Grothian twin broke his leg on the second day and had to be evacuated. Cadet Okonkwo arrived at base camp on the morning of day 3. He was carrying a satchel full of edible plants, a container of purified water, and inexplicably the severed head of a Rix stalker. Rix stalkers are apex predators. They hunt in packs. They are responsible for more cadet deaths in the survival module than any other single factor. It tried to eat me, Okonkwo explained, tossing the head at my feet. Figured I should return the favor, but it was week 12 that truly changed everything. Week 12 was the impossible threat module. Every year we present cadets with a simulated enemy that cannot be defeated. The purpose is to teach them humility, to show them that sometimes retreat is the only option, that there are things in this galaxy that will kill you no matter how skilled you are. This year, we chose the Maelrix. The Maelrix is not a creature, not really, it is a weapon, bioengineered by a long-dead civilization as a planetary cleansing mechanism. Self-healing, adaptive armor, capable of predicting and countering any attack pattern after seeing it once. The cadets were placed in a simulated urban environment. Their objective was to survive for 10 minutes against a single Maelrix. That was it. Just survive. Run. Hide. Whatever it took. Most species managed 3 minutes before being eliminated from the simulation. I pulled Cadet Okonkwo aside before his attempt. I felt I owed him that much. Despite my initial unease, I had grown to respect him over the previous weeks. He was crude, yes, uncivilized by galactic standards. But he was also brilliant in a terrifying, instinctive way. Cadet, I said quietly, what you are about to face cannot be killed. He looked at me. That smile again. With respect, instructor. That is what they said about the Kethrix behemoth. This is different. The Maelrix adapts. It learns. Every weapon you use, every tactic you try, it will analyze and counter. No weapon in our arsenal can destroy it. That is not hyperbole. That is fact. Tested across 300 years and 15 different civilizations. The human nodded slowly. So the lesson is about knowing when to run. Exactly. He was quiet for a moment, then he reached for his sidearm, ejected the power cell, checked it, and slammed it back into place. What are you doing? I asked. He looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something behind that smile, something cold and calculating, and utterly without mercy. Reloading, he said simply. Then he walked into the simulation. We watched from the observation deck. Myself, Commander HFY, Lieutenant Braxis, and 17 other instructors, all of us veterans, all of us certain we were about to watch a talented young cadet learn a painful lesson about hubris. We were wrong. Cadet Okonkwo did not run. Cadet Okonkwo did not hide. Cadet Okonkwo attacked. And what happened next? What we witnessed, over the following 9 minutes and 47 seconds, was either the most brilliant or the most insane display of combat I have ever seen. I genuinely could not tell which. But I knew one thing for certain. We were no longer training that human. He was training us. I have replayed the footage of what happened next over 400 times. I have shown it to admirals, general biologists and weapons specialists across 12 different star systems. None of them can fully explain it. None of them can quite believe it. But it happened. I watched it happen. And I will carry the memory of those 9 minutes and 47 seconds until the day I die. The simulation began the way it always did. Cadet Okonkwo materialized in the center of a bombed-out urban landscape, shattered buildings, burning vehicles. The acrid smell of smoke and death pumped through the environmental systems to make everything feel more real. The Maelrix appeared 3 seconds later. It was beautiful, in the way that extinction-level weapons are sometimes beautiful. 12 meters tall, jet-black armor that seemed to drink in the light. 6 limbs that could reconfigure into blades, hammers or projectile launchers, depending on what the situation required. Single optical sensor in its chest that glowed with cold, malevolent intelligence. It saw the human. The human saw it. And then, instead of running like every other cadet in the history of this module, Felix Okonkwo did something that made Commander Giselas choke on her nutrient drink. He waved. "Hey there, big guy." His voice came through the observation speakers. "You are uglier than my ex-girlfriend's cooking, and trust me, that is saying something." The Maelrix tilted its optical sensor. Processing, analyzing, it had never encountered prey that insulted it before. This was apparently new data. Then it charged. Here is what you need to understand about the Maelrix. It does not just adapt to weapons, it adapts to tactics. Show it a flanking maneuver, and it will never fall for that maneuver again. Use cover to break its line of sight, and it will immediately develop penetrating sensor capabilities. Hit it with explosives, and its armor will reconfigure to disperse blast energy. The key to its lethality is pattern recognition. It sees what you do, learns from it, and becomes immune. This is why no one has ever killed one. Because to kill something, you need to attack it. And the moment you attack a Maelrix, you have already lost. Cadet Okonkwo attacked it 17 different ways in the first 90 seconds. He opened fire with his plasma pistol while sprinting toward a collapsed building. The Maelrix armor immediately hardened against plasma energy, expected. He threw a fragmentation grenade as he dove through a window. The Maelrix reconfigured to disperse kinetic shrapnel, expected. He fired an armor-piercing round from a rifle he had apparently hidden on his person. The Maelrix developed localized density plating, expected. What was not expected was that none of these attacks were meant to damage the Maelrix. They were meant to teach it. "What is he doing?" Lieutenant Braxis asked, his crystalline exoskeleton clicking with confusion. "He is wasting ammunition on attacks that cannot possibly work." Commander Wysilis leaned forward. All 6 eyes narrowed. "No, he is not trying to kill it." "Then what?" I understood. Suddenly, horribly, I understood. "He is filling up its memory," I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. "The Maelrix adapts to threats by cataloging them," I continued, my throat dry. "Every attack pattern gets stored and analyzed, but storage requires processing power. Processing power that is not being used for other functions." Solas's eyes went wide. "He is overloading it. He is trying to, but that is insane. The Maelrix has processing capabilities beyond anything we can measure. He would need to show it hundreds of unique attack patterns to even begin slowing it down." On the screen below, Cadet Okonkwo burst out of the building, rolled under a swipe from one of the Maelrix's blade limbs, and threw what appeared to be a chunk of concrete directly at its optical sensor. The Maelrix caught the concrete, analyzed it, determined it was not a threat. Then the concrete exploded. The human had packed it with accelerant gel from his emergency kit. Improvised explosive. New pattern. Lock. That is 43, Braxis counted. 43 unique attack patterns in 2 minutes. How? Wasilis demanded. How is he coming up with this many variations? I shook my head. I did not know. None of us knew. But the human, sprinting and dodging and bleeding from a dozen small wounds. That human knew exactly what he was doing. Minute 4. The Maelrix was still adapting, but there was a noticeable lag now. 0.3 seconds between registering a threat and reconfiguring to counter it. That does not sound like much. For a human, 0.3 seconds is an eternity. Cadet Okonkwo pressed his advantage. He started combining attacks. Plasma fire followed by sonic grenades followed by a monofilament wire trap. He had somehow rigged between 2 buildings. Each combination was unique. Each combination forced the Maelrix to develop new countermeasures for the specific sequence, not just the individual components. Minute 5. 0.6 second lag. Minute 6. The Maelrix's movements became less fluid, more mechanical. It was dedicating so much processing power to cataloging threats that its predictive algorithms were suffering. It is actually working, Braxis breathed. By the architect, it is actually working. He still cannot kill it, Walses said, but there was doubt in her voice now. Its core is too well protected. Even if he slows it down, he cannot reach the central processing unit. On the screen, the human skidded to a stop in front of a partially collapsed parking structure. He was panting, bleeding. One arm hung at a bad angle, possibly dislocated, but he was smiling. Always smiling. Hey, ugly, he shouted at the Maelrix. You want to know the real difference between your species and mine? The Maelrix paused, optical sensor focusing on him. Your creators built you to adapt to every possible threat. Okonkwo continued. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy. You know what my species was built to do? He reached into his jacket and pulled out something small, something that glinted in the firelight. We were built to find the one thing nobody thought of. He pressed a button. The parking structure exploded. Not outward, downward. The human had not just been running through that building earlier. He had been planting charges, structural charges, placed at key load-bearing points. 3,000 tons of ferrocrete collapsed directly onto the Maelrix. The creature disappeared beneath the rubble, buried. Trap. That will not hold it. Yeses said immediately. It will dig itself out in seconds. She was right. Already, the rubble was shifting. Already, a black armored limb was forcing its way through the debris. But Okonkwo was not done. He limped toward the rubble pile, toward the emerging limb, and he pulled out one final weapon. A cutting torch. Standard issue. Used for breaching doors and slicing through hull plating. Completely useless against Maelrix armor. What is he doing? Braxis asked. The human activated the torch and pressed it against the Maelrix's exposed limb. The armor held. Of course it did. The Maelrix had already adapted to heat-based attacks. But Okonkwo was not aiming for the armor. He was aiming for the joint. Every machine has moving parts. Every moving part has a joint. And every joint, no matter how well designed, has a gap. The cutting torch was not powerful enough to breach Maelrix armor, but it was powerful enough to superheat the lubricating fluid in the joint mechanisms. Fluid that expanded when heated. Fluid that, when it expanded enough, cracked the internal seals and leaked into the surrounding components. The Maelrix's limbs seized, locked in place. The creature screamed, a sound like tearing metal. One joint down, Okonkwo muttered, 5 to go. It took him another 3 minutes. 3 brutal, bloody, agonizing minutes. The Maelrix fought him with everything it had. It adapted to the torch, but by then the damage was done. It tried to reconfigure its limbs, but the joint damage made movement erratic, imprecise. Cadet Felix Okonkwo, bleeding from wounds on his face, his chest, his legs, systematically crippled a weapon that had destroyed civilizations. And when all 6 limbs were locked, when the Maelrix lay helpless in the rubble, he climbed on top of it. found the seam in its chest armor, the tiny gap where the optical sensor connected to the main housing. He shoved the cutting torch into that gap and held the trigger down. The Maelrix screamed again, a sound of pure, unfiltered agony. Then it stopped. The optical sensor went dark. Silence in the observation deck. 17 instructors and 3 senior officers staring at the screen in absolute stunned silence. The simulation timer read 9 minutes, 47 seconds. The target status read terminated. "That is not possible," Lieutenant Braxis said finally. "That is literally not possible." Commander Weissliss stood slowly, all 6 arms trembling. "Someone get medical down to that simulation chamber. Now." I could not move, could not speak. I just watched the screen, watched this impossible human, this tiny, fragile, utterly terrifying creature, slide off the Maelrix corpse and collapse onto the rubble. He was laughing. Bleeding out, probably concussed, definitely in shock. And he was laughing. They kept Cadet Okonkwo in the medical bay for 3 days. Dislocated shoulder, 4 cracked ribs, severe lacerations, minor internal bleeding. He would make a full recovery. On the 4th day, I went to visit him. He was sitting up in bed, reading something on his datapad. He looked up when I entered and smiled. That same smile, the one that had unsettled me from the very first moment I saw it. "Instructor Torin," he said, "come to give me my grade?" I sat down across from him. For a long moment, I did not speak. I just looked at him, this small, soft, impossible creature. "Cadet," I said finally, "I have been a combat instructor for 47 cycles. I have trained warriors from every corner of this galaxy. I have seen things that would break most minds." He waited. "What you did in that simulation," I continued, "should not have been possible. The Maelrix has killed armies, fleets, entire planetary defense networks, and you destroyed it with a cutting torch and some concrete." Okonkwo shrugged. "Everything has a weakness, instructor. You just have to be stubborn enough to find it." "Is that what humans are? Stubborn?" He laughed. "Among other things, we are also petty, vindictive, and way too proud to know when to quit." He leaned back against his pillows. "You told me that lesson was about knowing when to run, and I get that. I do. Sometimes running is the smart move. But," his smile faded, "just a little, just enough to show me what was underneath. But sometimes, instructor, running is not an option. Sometimes you have to stand and fight, even when you are outmatched, outgunned and outclassed. Because if you do not, then something worse happens." He met my eyes. "You lose the ability to believe you can win." I left the medical bay that day with a new understanding of humanity. Not just their tactics or their stubbornness or their infuriating refusal to accept defeat. I understood something deeper. Humans do not fight because they think they can win. They fight because they refuse to imagine a universe where they cannot. And that, more than any weapon or strategy, is what makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Cadet Felix Okonkwo graduated at the top of his class. He went on to serve with distinction in 3 major conflicts, earning more commendations than any non-human soldier in Academy history. As for me, I retired 2 cycles later, not because I was tired, not because I was old, but because I realized that I had nothing left to teach. The humans had shown me everything I needed to know. And honestly, that terrified me more than any Maelrix ever could.